The House, they've been gone for quite a while, and certainly the travel challenges with flights across the country being canceled over the weekend is not going to make it easy for some members to get back into town.
If you're a House Republican or a House Democrat and you want to get back for this vote, come now.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Monday, November 10th, 2025. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, we've got the latest on the shutdown action in the Senate. Number two, the House is coming back. And number three, former lawmakers make a run at returning to Congress. What a time they've missed. All right, Jake, let's get into it. It was a weekend of stops and starts, but truly the beginning of ending. The shutdown is in process now. The Senate voted. It was a major moment. Obviously, a lot of ramifications when it comes to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, frustration among some of the more progressives in the chamber with their more moderate members. But it has been, more than 40 days here, and we are starting to see the machinations, the wheels start turning to get the government reopened.
Yeah, that's right. It was a beautiful weekend outside for many of us. We're in the Capitol. So listen, this is the same deal that John Thune offered them a month ago. I mean, it is. It's the same deal that Senate Democrats could have had on the table 1 month ago. I mean, it just is. The big victory here is a promise for a vote by the end of the year on Obamacare subsidies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Thune said a month ago. A bill of their choosing. They could put a bill of their choosing on the floor for a vote. Now, Democrats are trying to spin this hard. They're trying to say they got SNAP funded. Well, SNAP gets funded when the Agriculture Department gets funded. It's mandatory spending, and once ag approps gets passed, SNAP gets funded. You could argue that reversing the mass layoffs from the shutdown is a good thing. Of course, it's a win of sorts. But the mass layoffs from October 1st were made possible by the shutdown.
Yeah.
So here we are on day 41. November 10th, after an October 1st shutdown, and that's what Democrats got. Chuck Schumer, we should note Chuck Schumer is a no. Brian Schatz, the next Democratic whip, is a no. And 8 Democrats, and that includes Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, Tim Kaine of Virginia, Angus King, independent, who caucuses with the Democrats, of Maine, Dick Durbin of Illinois, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, and Jackie Rosen of Nevada. All of these people are either not running again, Shaheen and Durbin, are up in 2028, Cortez Masto, Hassan, Fetterman. Durbin's also not running again, or up in 2030, Tim Kaine, Angus King, and Jackie Rosen. You are a smart person, Anna. You see the pattern there. These are people who don't have immediate political considerations. What say you?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I get what you're saying, and the Democrats are trying to find a way to put a bow on this. But listen, at some point, the government needs to reopen, right? Like, I think as much as Democrats fought for something, they didn't get it. We've seen that time and again when it comes to shutdowns, right? Republicans have done it multiple times in our career covering this, where, not only did they didn't get anything, right? I mean, they're getting a promise of a vote,
right,
and they're not getting a policy, outcome. But it's not surprising that this is how this all ended up. I think the thing that when you look back over government shutdowns, that was kind of surprising is how long Democrats held out, right? Despite the fact that you now have a 10% shutdown on, or coming up this week on all flights, you have SNAP benefits, running out, all kinds of things that typically you would have thought would have been trigger points for Democrats. They held together a lot longer than I think a lot of people would have initially thought. Yes, is this not a great day for Chuck Schumer? Is he going to have to deal with the left and the Bernie Sanders of the world being upset? Of course. But at the same time, there was a sense within the caucus that something had to change, this was building over time. They also was they weren't going to get what they wanted.
No.
Right? Like,
that was very clear at a certain point that right, they weren't going to cave.
Right.
Although you could argue that Trump started to acknowledge the political problems for Republicans, which is by going out and saying this is hurting us more than it's hurting them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean that Thune and Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Speaker Mike Johnson, were going to cave? No, it didn't. It didn't mean that. They were not looking for these Obamacare negotiations with the government closed. Now, and we'll get to the House in a minute, Anna, in the second item. So I don't want to get too deep into this. But if you're looking at pure power dynamics here, John Thune and Mike Johnson exerted ultimate kind of power here, right? In a certain sense, because they didn't move 1 inch off of their position, not 1 inch. And the realists I would argue that the Democrats who voted yes are being realistic, that Republicans weren't moving and they weren't going to move. And the stated goal is to finish this package today, is to get a consent agreement from 100 senators and to clear it today. That would mean the House is going to come back in the next 36 hours or something, Wednesday or Thursday probably, and vote for this then. So the shutdown could be over Wednesday. I would say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is probably your best guess if you had to be a gambling person.
I think the other thing that, and then we'll get to the House, but I do think is important is the role of President Donald Trump here. He largely stayed out of this fight, right? It was going off to, going abroad, doing kind of international deals, focusing on some of his private sector deals. But it will be interesting to see, particularly in the closeout of this in the House, how much he needs to get involved, because this is a package that is supported by the White House, and it's not necessarily going to be easy, right? The reason why we're in this kind of position in general, why Republicans had such power here, is because the House kind of defied the odds once again by getting all of the Republicans to vote without the need for Democrats to negotiate.
Yeah, I think the president's going to have to get involved because it's always messy, right? It's always messy in the House, and I don't think that's going to change. But let's talk about the House.
Let's get there. All right, the House. They've been gone for quite a while, and certainly the travel challenges with flights across the country being canceled over the weekend is not going to make it easy for some members to get back into town. But that's not going to be the biggest problem for Speaker Mike Johnson, potentially. There are a lot of lawmakers who, on both sides, say, they don't support this package.
I want to talk about the flight problems in a second because this is a big issue, but let's talk about the vote count problems first. Number one, the default position in the House Democratic Caucus is going to be no.
Yep.
It's just going to be. And whether it should be or not, I don't know. And I'm not really interested in having a political science debate over what this should or should not be, but it's going to be a no.
Just like there were only 8 Senate Democrats that crossed the line, you wouldn't expect there to be a vast majority of House Democrats to back this bill.
Correct. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, who, by the way, extremely, critical of Chuck Schumer in March over Schumer helping keep the government open. He's a no. So that's going to be the default position. The important Democrats to watch are Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez of Washington, Jared Golden of Maine, Don Davis of North Carolina, and Henry Cuellar of Texas. Theoretically, Johnson doesn't need any Democrats. In reality, he is going to need them because I don't think Tom Massey is going to be a yes, and I don't think he's ever going to be a yes.
I mean, Massey and Victoria Sports both voted against it the last time around.
Exactly. They both voted against the CR, a simple 7-week CR last time. So you have to assume that at least they're going to need at least one Democrat. But listen, the House Republican leadership is now saying that they're only going to give a 36-hour heads up to lawmakers to get back to town. So what does that mean?
What could go wrong, Jake?
I tweeted this or X'd it, whatever. I posted it on X last night. If you're a House Republican or a House Democrat and you want to get back for this vote, you should just come now. Like, you should get in your car or go to the airport and get back to Washington now. Because I was watching yesterday, as you know, I have an interest in aviation. Commercial aviation, general aviation. I love all aviation, Anna.
Yes.
And according to Flightly, which tracks this stuff, it's an aviation geek thing, more than 50% of flights in America were delayed or disrupted, meaning canceled or delayed. So most lawmakers do come through a hub. They come through Charlotte, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, one of those hubs. Those hubs are a mess right now. Delta, I think, had the worst. I think Delta was 50-something%. Southwest was pretty bad because they are point-to-point travel. They don't really have hubs. So if you are looking to get back into town, you need to get going now. And with the House at 219, so they're going to have to swear in Adelita Grijalva now because that's what Johnson said they would do. 219 to 214 is the breakdown. And so that means Johnson could lose just 2 votes and pass a bill on their own. You have to, I mean, I don't know. Jared Golden's retiring. Henry Cuellar has a tough race in Texas. I assume, those are the 2 Democrats rather that you might get. Golden was the Democrat who voted for it last time. That was before he announced he was going to retire. So they're going to need some level of Democrats. But if with a 36-hour heads up, which is now what the Republican leadership is saying they're going to give, there's going to be people who don't make it back to town. You could just bet. Yeah. This is going to be a Wednesday, Thursday story in the House, I guess. Wednesday seems right, but maybe they push it to Thursday morning. So I hope it's Thursday because GW plays American on Wednesday night. But anyway, I'm
sure they're taking a look and they're really checking with your calendar, Jake, just to make sure it aligns with your interests.
I would hope so because they've put us through this now for 41 days. At least they could be considerate of my interests. But
all right. On that, let's move on to the number 3 story of the morning. Don't call it a comeback. What? Ex-members eye comeback bids in 2026. I mean, with the amazing ability of government to work, people getting along, lots of big bills getting done. It's no surprise that so many former lawmakers are looking to come back. Kind of an interesting trend, though, especially on the Democratic side, where you have people like Melissa Bean, the Democrat from Illinois, and others launching campaign bids this cycle.
Yeah. If you look at this Congress and man, I got to get involved in this thing, then you may or may not need to be examined. Listen, this is a really smart story from Allie. Melissa Bean, Cori Bush, Sherrod Brown, Ben McAdams, Elaine Luria, Hilda Solis, who served in the cabinet and is now going to look at a comeback. David Trone seems to be heading toward a primary challenge of April McClain Delaney, Scott Brown, John Sununu, Van Hillary, who left in 2003, part of the class of 1994, who until recently a chief of staff, believe it or not, to John Rose, is looking to come back. Anna, goodness, what are these people thinking?
Water's warm, Jake. We're still here. We covered many of them their first round.
Barely still here, but we are still here. Welcome back. But if you start questioning your life choices, I will not be surprised to all these former members who are getting back in the pool.
All right, we are going to leave it there. One quick thing, Jake, I did want to make sure we noted this afternoon. We've got Allie Mutnick, Max Cohn, 2 of our reporters who are super focused on 2026. We're going to be hosting a Reddit AMA on the r/politics subreddit, taking questions about what they're seeing, trend lines, the Democrats, kind of what's happening and redistricting, so many different things. Encourage you to check that out. And as always, thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, share it on social media, tell your friends. It's the best way for folks to find out about us. And of course, you can go deeper on all things we talked about this morning and more at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.